Students, I'm going to have you here before I start reading the story called The Phone Call, which we'll take our plot test on. I'm going to have you open up the story so you can follow along with me while I'm reading. So if you go to your Tuesday in your Google Classroom, you'll need to click on the PDF that is titled Phone Call. Okay, so it looks just like this. And this story will be right on here. So while I'm reading, I would love for you to follow along. This story will also be helpful for you while you're taking your test. You can go back and look at any part of the story. So I'll give you 30 seconds here to get this up if you have not done so yet. All right, we'll get going here again while I'm reading. Just make sure you are following along on your screen to the story. The phone call. Paul looked out the window and sighed. The driveway was still empty, and it was getting dark. He checked the clock and sighed again, deeper this time. His dad had said that he would pick him up by 5:30, but it was almost 7, and Paul hadn't heard a word from him. He walked up the stairs to his room and put away his baseball glove. Paul figured that even if his dad did miraculously show, it wouldn't be much fun playing catch in the dark. Paul sat down on the couch and tried to do some of his reading homework, but he couldn't get his dad off of his mind. The phone rang at about 8 o'clock, and Paul let it go to voicemail, to the machine. It was his dad. Hey, Paul. I'm so sorry that I couldn't make it tonight. I had to finish up a big project at work. Maybe we can catch a baseball game this weekend. Oh, wait. This weekend's no good. How about next weekend? That should work. You and I are going to go to the stadium for sure, Paulie. I hope all is well. Paul listened to the machine in disgust. He knew that his dad had a job and a life, but he couldn't understand why he was always flaking out on him. Paul thought to himself, couldn't someone else get one of these bad news speeches once in a while? Why does it always have to be me? Paul crashed on the couch with his book open to the first page and fell asleep. The next day at school, Paul didn't turn in his math or science homework, and he failed a pop quiz in reading class. Paul's homeroom teacher, Mr. Matthews, noticed Paul's uncharacteristically poor performance and asked him to stay after class. Paul sort of murmured a response that sounded like, okay. When the bell rang, the other children filed out of class. Paul huffed and waited with his head on his desk. Mr. Matthews pulled up a chair next to him. What's up, Paul? You're not doing your homework. You're not studying for tests, and this isn't like you. Something must be bothering you. What is it? Paul didn't want to tell him. He knew that if he started talking, a flood of emotions would pour out of him. He just wanted to be alone with his pain. So he sat there quietly, not even looking at Mr. Matthews. Well, Paul, if you don't want to talk, I will. I know that something's bothering you and you've got to get it out. You don't need to tell me, but you need to tell someone, or this thing is going to eat you up. Paul, you've got to feel your best to do your best. The sooner you get this thing off your chest, the sooner you can heal. As Paul walked home from school, he reflected on the things that Mr. Matthews had told him. He knew that he hadn't been himself recently. Maybe he stopped doing his work because he was looking for attention from his father. He hadn't really thought about it too much up until now. But as he walked home that night, he realized that he wasn't just letting his dad spoil his plans, he was letting him spoil his life. Paul figured that Mr. Matthews was right. He couldn't do his best until he felt his best. He decided to take his advice and talk to someone about it. That night, when Paul got home from school, he called his dad. The call went to voicemail after ringing 7 or 8 times. Paul had heard his dad's answering machine message more times than he cared to remember. But this time, things were different. When it ended, he would say what he really felt. When the phone beeped, Paul began talking. Dad, it's Paul. I can't go to the stadium with you next weekend. I've got a lot of homework to catch up on. Also, I don't really want to spend another day looking out the window and waiting. When you break plans with me, Dad, it hurts. And I'm sick of getting hurt. It's not too late to rebuild our relationship, but we're going to have to start small. Maybe you can help me with my homework sometime or something. Dad, I love you, but that's how I feel. As Paul ended the call, he felt as though a tremendous burden had been lifted off his shoulders. He didn't know whether his dad would change. He didn't even think that he would, but it didn't matter. Paul had changed. He had expressed his feelings to the right person, rather than just bottling them up inside of himself. And he had a clear head as he worked through his assignments that night. So, sixth graders, now that this story is over, what you are going to do when this video is done is you're going to go to the website called Interactive Worksheets found on our Google Classroom page. This is where you'll take the test. It is a Wiser test. In this test, again, just a reminder, all you will need to do is you'll need to match the events on the left-hand side with which part of a plot chart that they belong. So you'll drag the event to whatever part you think it is, just as I've done here, and you'll continue to do that. When you are done, make sure you hit hand in work, which that allows you to submit the test. If at any point when you are working on this test, sixth graders, you need to go back to the story, you have that in your Google Classroom page. When you are all done with the test, please silently read at your desk until the rest of your class is finished, and your teachers then will play the video introducing theme. Good luck. If you have any questions, you can feel free to ask your teachers.